Welcome back to the Abyss.
The beer splashed me in the face. God damn it.
I know you missed us last week. I missed us last week.
Hey, it's not our fault. We got back from California and got the flu.
Not we. You got back from California.
Yeah, true.
And you brought a disgusting disease back with you.
Whoa,
a disgusting, horrible
very
disease.
Very curable after a week.
Nasty, festering, disgusting
Guttural.
Disease.
Street walk.
Like, there's no recovering from this.
You're going to die.
So we're drinking a beer, probably another shitty beer. Oh, you didn't? Oh, there's the wins. So I made a mistake because last episode we had the peaches and cream from Shades Brewing. I bought this one at the exact same time, not knowing how bad the peaches was going to be. So this is also from Shades Brewing Company. It's a pina colada, American style sour ale. And again, the can looks cool, which is why I bought it with the peaches one. I will never buy a fruity Shades beer again. Is it as bad? It's not as bad
as the peach.
Oh, that's significantly better than the peach.
Yeah, the peach was like a punch to the face. This is like a little flick of the nose.
It's a flick to the nose.
Yeah.
Like you pissed on the carpet and you're getting punished for it. Flick.
What?
Didn't like that. You never pissed on the carpet, Cleve?
No, not yet.
You're missing out, man.
You get flicked in the nose for that? That seems like an egregious offense.
For pissing on the carpet?
Yeah.
You get flicked on the balls. But I also brought a second beer to make up for it, which we'll crack open later. I watched a couple scary movies.
Okay.
I guess one is scary, one is intense. So the first one that we watched, the more intense one, is Society of the Snow. It's on Netflix. It's about the plane that crashed in the Alps with the rugby team, the real story. Yeah, that's a good one.
Eat people?
Yeah, they ate each other. And like the pictures online, like you can see the human spine next to them when they're sitting there. Like it's creepy, man. Ooh. But it was wild. It was a really good film. It's really sad, of course. Like it's true. So, that's always fun. But the second movie I watched, which was scary, is called Nefarious. It was actually okay.
Nefarious.
What's that about? It's a serial killer who is in prison claiming he's possessed by the devil, and the doctor has to come evaluate him to decide if he's sane or insane before he decides if he gets fatally zapped or not. And he has to make the decision on if he's insane or sane.
Sure.
It's actually pretty good. It was okay.
I think he's sane. The devil's in him.
It's not winning any awards, but it was good. It was decent.
I watched The Last Shift last night.
It's the final shift.
Kind of an older movie, I suppose. And it was all right. It was okay. Kind of on the nose.
Looks like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, though.
Yeah, but
how did that happen?
On Rotten Tomatoes, especially from the critics, are stupid. I never go off that. I'll go off the audience score generally, but it's about some chick cop that's at an old station. She starts seeing spooky ghosts and things happen, and they're just trying too hard, man. It's just like she goes and looks at a locker, like her dad's old locker, because I guess he died. He was on the force originally, and she like looks away and all the lockers are open. It's like, oh,
that's never been done before.
Or like she looks out of the room and all these chairs are stacked up on each other within a second. It's like, come on, man. Like, at least be realistic. Like, that's not going to happen in a second. She looks out of the room, looks in, all the chairs are stacked.
They're efficient ghosts, Cleet.
Yeah, I mean,
you can be efficient.
It's impressive,
and dead.
I suppose. I don't know.
I used to work at Quiznos, and I could stack chairs like a motherfucker.
I wouldn't watch it again, but if you guys want to, if you guys doubt my taste, take a watch.
I am curious when people hear our takes on stuff, like who agrees with what, because we're mostly divided.
We're
and
very
stuff.
different. We never agree on anything. It's not even for like shock value.
Yeah, no, we don't. Like, I don't know. I will never agree with you on like the last Evil Dead. I thought it was great. You're like, it's the worst film ever.
Like the abortion of the Evil Dead.
Oh my god, dude!
I hated that goddamn
that was so
show.
Good. I enjoyed it.
Like, I still to this day don't understand how you gave a shit about the characters at all.
Oh,
here's this new character we introduced. Oh, by the way, they're gonna die really soon. Like, they're not gonna have any audio to them. Like, they say like 2 lines and they get murdered.
You've seen the original Evil Dead, right?
Yeah, I cared about the
same idea.
There was better character development in the original Evil Dead.
Okay,
it was better.
I mean, I don't disagree. The first one was way
I didn't
better.
give a shit about the characters. At least I felt bad with the first girl who had to like get the turkey cutter thing and chop off her arm. And then
Okay,
she just
well,
died
spoilers if you
anyways.
haven't seen
and
it.
you're like, that didn't even work. It didn't even work.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Again,
like when she's
it's not the
running
best.
in the woods away from that thing, and you're like, I was into it. I just
Yeah.
fucking hated that shit.
And you and M. Night Shyamalan, the personal vendetta you have. Although you did like the last one you watched.
I
The
did
Knock
actually-
at the Cabin.
Hang on, I'm going to tell you one last thing. I went online just to see if people thought like I did on The Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah?
There is a segment of people that totally agree with me about how shitty
Of
that
course,
show
there's
was.
always going to be. There's also a
No,
segment who
no,
agrees with
there
me
was-
that it's really good.
There was like people trolling Bruce Banner because like he was...
Bruce Banner's the Hulk.
Bruce Campbell. There was people trolling Bruce Campbell about how bad the film was, and I guess he was getting really upset about it.
Did he direct it?
Yeah. They're
Oh,
like, Bruce
I had no
Campbell,
idea.
your film sucks. I would have said it too.
I have no idea he directed it.
Whoever said that was my spirit animal for sure. Because I totally
Some
would've
guy
done
in his
that.
mom's basement.
No, the opening night, if I was in there and I saw that and I saw him, I'm like, your show sucks, Bruce.
It's because you're a troll to the end. Anyway, enough of the banter back and forth. So we are going back into our serial killers in every state. We are at part 7. So this week we are covering New Mexico, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and North Dakota.
Hey.
So, yeah, the next 5 states and their sick fucking serial killers.
We shoot like our wood chippers up north, eh?
Indubitably. Speaking of North Dakota, do you watch Fargo?
I've seen the movie, I think the original one.
The original movie's great, but they're on like season 5 of the show.
I don't watch TV series.
It's so good. Like every season has like its own unique twist to it. They're so fun. It's great. You should watch it. I'll kick us off with New Mexico, and we're going to cover David Parker Ray, also known as the Toy Box Killer.
Ooh, heard of that guy. Let me play you a tape.
That's the Toolbox Killer.
Oh,
This
man,
is the Toy Box Killer.
All right.
I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, I didn't think it was New Mexico. Yeah, this is the Toy Box, not to be confused with the Toolbox Killer.
Okay. Interesting. There's nuance, people.
David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939 in Belen, New Mexico. His father was Cecil Leland Ray, a mechanic and native of Oregon, and his mother was Nettie Opal Parker. During his childhood, Ray and his younger sister, Peggy Pearl Ray, lived with his mother's strict and disciplinary parents, Russell and Dolly Parker. They resided on a small ranch due to lack of finances. David was infrequently visited by his violent alcoholic father, who supplied him with magazines depicting sadomasochistic pornography.
Just a
Which-
regular childhood.
Yeah, which, it's good for young adolescent
Yeah.
brains.
What a
Just
good
that
dad.
sadomasochistic porn. At Mountain Air High School in Mountain Air, New Mexico, he was bullied by his peers for his shyness around girls, which drove him to abuse alcohol and various other drugs. And the only freaking interaction he has with women is these magazines that he reads, and that's not how you treat people at school. I mean, no wonder he's shy.
That's like
He's
the
like,
equivalent of this in 2023 is like, here, son, here's my subscription to this website.
not in Utah.
You gotta,
Unless you're using a
yeah,
VPN.
VPN, man.
Here's the login to the VPN, son. Enjoy the hub. It's going to put some hair on your chest.
Yeah.
Ray began to have sexual fantasies of raping, torturing, and even murdering women during his teenage years. And when he was only 14 years old, his sister saw his sadomasochistic drawings and pornographic pictures of bondage practices, which resulted in Ray and his sister becoming estranged. That would do it.
Yeah, right. You know, you kind of feel bad for this guy, but then you hear like more about him. You're like, you're weird.
You feel bad, like, especially in this case where there's so much influence at a young age. And, like, you're like, shit, man, any kid who has that thrown in their face constantly from their dad, you're like, this is normal.
I was already predisposed to darkness, and then I was raised in it.
You simply inherited the light. Darkness, motherfucker. Bane. But yeah, a lot of these serial killers have very shitty upbringings. You feel bad, and then you're like, man, you killed a lot of people, so I no longer feel bad about you.
Your life was not a Chuck E. Cheese, baby.
Chuck E. Cheese is scary. Based on statements made by Ray, he's believed to have begun assaulting women as an adolescent. In an advisory tape-recorded message from Ray on July 23rd of 93, he claimed, I've been raping bitches ever since I was old enough to jerk off and tie little girls' hands behind their back. This guy's a fucking monster. He even alleged to his first wife that he had committed his first homicide sometime back in 1957 when he kidnapped a woman, tied her to a tree, and tortured and murdered her.
This is a bad guy.
Unfortunately, authorities weren't able to verify this claim. Now, after completing high school, Ray received an honorable discharge from the United States Army. That's another thing. A lot of serial killers join the Army.
Oh, yeah.
A lot
Kinda
of
makes
them.
sense.
Where his service included work as general mechanic. Ray then worked as a maintenance man for the New Mexico Parks Department in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. That's quite the name of a town, Truth or Consequences.
Damn. Better tell the truth.
Lost
You'll
my
have consequences.
fucking spot. For the entirety of his adulthood until his arrest. The resort town, located approximately 5 miles from Elephant Butte, New Mexico, housed several local bars, which Ray visited often in search of his victims. Ray met Cindy Hendy, a 37-year-old who worked at a state park in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, who happened to be fleeing convictions on grand theft and drug charges in Washington state. Just a match made in heaven, if you ask me. They became romantically involved and bonded, maybe quite literally, over their shared violent sexual fantasies. In a 1993 recorded message, Ray told his captives that they would be forced to sexually service Hendy as well. Ray went through divorce 4 times and had 2 children, including his accomplice, daughter, Glenda Jessie Jean Ray. So his daughter is an accomplice to his kidnappings and murders and rapes.
What in the world?
Yeah. Glenda attempted to warn the FBI about her father's criminal activity in 1986. FBI agent Doug Belden recalled Jessie Ray's claims. She alleged David Ray Parker was abducting and torturing women and selling them to buyers in Mexico. However, the allegations were so nonspecific that the FBI were unable to arrest Ray. Son of a bitch! So now we're going to get into the actual criminal history. Heads up, trigger warning here, it gets pretty intense. Ray sexually tortured and presumably killed his victims using whips, chains, pulleys, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, surgical blades, electrical shock machines, and saws. It's thought that he terrorized many women with these tools for many years with the help of accomplices, some of whom are alleged to have been some of the women he was dating. Ray's torture room was a repurposed cargo trailer that had been soundproofed and was located immediately outside of Elephant Butte, New Mexico property. He took to calling it the toy box, due to the numerous sex toys, torture implements, syringes, and detailed diagrams showing ways of inflicting pain. So yeah, he called it the toy box. Disgusting.
Damn.
Also inside was a homemade electrical generator to electrocute his victims. In total, Ray is believed to have spent $100,000 on the trailer, fitting it with sex toys and torture devices all in all. Reportedly, Ray constructed several elaborate contraptions to confine his victims, such as fur-lined coffins and a makeshift pillory. In addition, there were elaborate locks and pulleys to prevent his captives from escaping. A mirror was mounted on the ceiling above the obstetric table to which he strapped his victims so they would be able to see themselves raped and tortured. He was said to force his victims to see everything that he was doing to them. Ray also put his victims in wooden contraptions that bent them over and immobilized them while he had his dogs and sometimes other friends rape them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he is a fucking monster. Ray often had an audio tape recording of his voice played for his victims whenever they regained consciousness. So like he would just record himself, they'd wake up, and he'd have a video, like a tape recording playing of his voice.
What a weird guy.
In the transcripts of his tapes, Ray went into vivid detail on how he would occasionally release his captives, abandon them by the side of a country road, after severely drugging them with barbiturates to induce amnesia, which would prevent them from reporting the assaults.
I don't know if that would work, but
He thought it would.
interesting nonetheless.
So this is what he said. I get off on mind games. After we get completely through with you, you're going to be drugged up real heavy with a combination of sodium pentothal and phenobarbital. They're both hypnotic drugs that will make you extremely susceptible to hypnosis, auto-hypnosis, and hypnotic suggestion. You're going to be kept drugged a couple of days while I play with your mind. By the time I get through brainwashing you, you're not going to remember a fucking thing about this little adventure.
It's like,
it's going to mess with you.
Disneyland.
Yeah, it's like a horrible Disneyland. He went on to kidnap about 4 or 5 women a year, holding each of them captive for roughly 2 to 3 months. It's still not entirely clear on how many victims Ray claimed over the years, but investigators believe that he raped, tortured, and killed up to 60 individuals over the course of his life. However, they have not been able to locate any of their remains. A diary that Ray kept detailed what he did to each victim, but did not disclose where he buried their bodies. According to accomplice Cindy Hendy, Ray's fatal victims were dismembered and buried, dumped in the Elephant Butte Lake or in nearby ravines. After his arrest, Ray agreed to show authorities where he had buried his victims. However, he died before he could do so, and Hendy was unable to assist investigators in recovering any possible bodies.
Like that happens too often.
Yeah, it's like, I'll tell you everything, and then he dies.
Or they're like, we're going to arrest you. Heart attack.
Heart attack, yep. In 2011, the Albuquerque FBI released hundreds of images of items that were collected during Ray's investigation. The FBI believes some of the items, which included jewelry and clothes, may have been taken from victims. Along with law enforcement, the FBI, along with its law enforcement partners in New Mexico, is aggressively pursuing several leads in the search for remains of any possible victims of David Parker Ray, said Frank Fisher of the Albuquerque field office. We're asking family and friends of missing people to look over these photographs and contact us if they recognize any of these items. So Ray had several suspected victims, which I'm going to name a few, but for time's sake, we're not going to be able to cover all of them. Billy Ray Bowers, who is 53, disappeared from Phoenix, Arizona on September 25th of 1988. On September 28th, 1989, the body of an unknown man that was wrapped in a blue tarp was found by a fisherman in the McCree Cove at Elephant Butte Lake in New Mexico. They found no identification on him, and it was determined that he had been shot in the back of the head. The unidentified man was ultimately identified as Bowers in March 1999 when authorities made dental record comparisons. In '86, Bowers was a co-owner of Canal Motors, a used car business that was on North Van Buren Street in Phoenix, Arizona. The owners employed Ray, who worked as a mechanic and was described as very talented, but was also seen in conflict often with Bowers. While incarcerated, Hendy stated that Ray told her he had killed Bowers and dumped his body in the Elephant Butte River. Sylvia Marie Parker, 22, was a homeless woman living on the shores of Elephant Butte Lake and was an acquaintance of Ray's via his daughter. She supplied her with methamphetamine and cocaine. Parker was also the mother of 2 children and had been living with them in a tent, which she had borrowed from David. The police later discovered that Parker's boyfriend at the time was Dennis Yancey, one of Ray's playmates. Parker disappeared on July 5th of 97 when she was abducted and subjected to several days of torture before Yancey strangled her to death under Ray's orders. Yancey took police to where he disposed of the body with David Parker Ray, but the body had been moved. Yancey suspected, to which the police support the theory, that Ray came back to move the body later in case Yancey ever had a softening of his conscience and confessed. Cynthia Vigil was abducted from an Albuquerque parking lot by Ray and his girlfriend. They took her to Elephant Butte where they confined her to the trailer and tortured her. After 3 days of captivity, Vigil escaped from the trailer on March 22nd of 99. To escape, she waited until Ray left for work and unlocked her chains with the keys that Hendy had left on a nearby table. She's like, you ain't keeping me here. Hendy noticed Vigil's attempt to escape and a fight broke out. During the struggle, Hendy broke a lamp on the victim's head, but Vigil unlocked her chains and stabbed Hendy in the neck with an ice pick.
Damn.
That would fucking hurt.
The victim did that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Vigil fled while wearing only an iron slave collar and padlocked chains. She ran down the road seeking help, which she got from a nearby homeowner who took her in, comforted her, and called the police. Her escape led officials to the trailer where Ray and his accomplices were captured and arrested. Police detained Ray and Hendy. The FBI sent roughly 100 agents to examine Ray's property and surroundings, yet no identifiable human remains were ever found. While awaiting trial, Ray spoke to FBI profilers saying he was fascinated by the kidnapping of Colleen Stan and other sexually motivated kidnappings. The FBI had previously spoken to Ray as early as 1989 in connection with the business manufacturing and selling bondage-related sexual devices. A week into his trial for crimes against Vigil, Ray agreed to a plea bargain, being sentenced in 2001 to 224 years in prison for numerous offenses in the abduction and sexual torture of 3 young women at his Elephant Butte home. The plea deal was to obtain leniency for his daughter. Prosecutors stated that the surviving victims approved of the deal. Ray's daughter, Glenda Jean Ray, was charged with kidnapping and criminal sexual penetration. She pled no contest and received a 30-month sentence with an additional 5 years to be served on probation. In 1999, 27-year-old accomplice Dennis Roy Yancey pleaded guilty to the 97 murders of 22-year-old Marie Parker in Elephant Butte. Yancey confessed to helping Jessie Ray lure Parker into captivity in her father's trailer. Yancey said that Parker was tortured and that Ray forced him to strangle the woman to death. Prosecutors noted that no forensic evidence was found to tie Parker to the Rays. Yancey was also charged with kidnapping, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit a crime, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to 30 years. On May 28, 2002, Ray was taken to the Lee County Correctional Facility in Hobbs, New Mexico, to be questioned by state police. He, however, died of a heart attack before the interrogation took place.
Always happens, man.
There you go.
God, dead.
The fucking toy box dickhead killer.
All right, moving to New Jersey, and we will be covering Richard Cottingham. New Jersey, GTL, gym, tan, and laundry.
What?
Just a way of life. All right. Anyways, Richard Cottingham is a serial killer from New Jersey operating in New York between 1967 and 1980. His nickname, the Torso Killer, is due to his habit of dismembering his victims, usually leaving nothing but a torso behind.
That's like the biggest piece to leave behind.
That's crazy, right? In one case, he dismembered 2 prostitutes in a motel, taking the hands and heads with him before setting the room on fire. He was eventually convicted of murder in 1981 after being caught fleeing an attempted murder. So, let's jump into it. Richard Cottingham. On December 2nd, 1979, firemen in New York responded to an alarm at a shitty little hotel near Times Square.
The hotel was just shitty and little.
When they forced their way inside and put the fire out, they found something more than burnt furniture. Stretched out on their beds were 2 headless corpses. Their bodies also had their hands removed. They had been doused with lighter fluid and set alight. The missing body parts were never found, but once x-rayed, one victim was identified as Dida Gudarzi, 22, an immigrant from Kuwait, who was working as a prostitute. The other headless corpse was never identified. Can you imagine that? Like, you could just get murdered, get your head taken off, and no one knows who you were? Like, I don't know who that was. I don't know.
No idea.
Homicide detectives linked the murders with that of the murder of teenage hooker Helen Sykes. She had gone missing from Times Square in January 1979. When found, her head was hanging by a thread. Her legs had also been hacked off and were eventually found a block away from the rest of the body. The legs were laying side by side as if still attached to the body. On May 5th, 1980, police found another prostitute, Valerie Streets, dead in a motel room. She had been beaten and strangled, then stuffed under the bed of the room. She had been given one hell of a beating, and her killer had eaten away at her nipples.
What?
Almost severing one. This murder was linked to an earlier murder in the same hotel. Mary Ann Carr was also brutally beaten, but police could not positively link the crimes. On May 15th, another prostitute was found murdered in a motel room. Jean Rayner was stabbed to death in a motel near Times Square. Her breasts had been hacked off and her body was set on fire. This time, it seems, the police were able to link the crime. 1 week later, police were called out to the same motel, but this time, it was for a disturbance. Someone had called about a girl screaming. Like, this guy keeps going to the same hotel. I don't know. Why would you go to the same hotel? The girl was screaming as if she was being tortured. When police arrived, they caught a man trying to flee the room. When they entered the room, they found a young girl handcuffed to the bed. She was in hysterics, crapping on what this guy had put her through. She had been beaten, raped, sodomized, and forced at knife point to give this man a blowjob. He also stabbed her and bit almost right through her nipples.
Jesus.
Richard Cottingham was arrested for the attack. At a glance, it would seem that he was a very unlikely suspect. He was a respected family man and had a good job in computers for a major health insurance firm. But once police searched him and his house, it would reveal a different story. When arrested, he had handcuffs, a leather gag, 2 collars, a switchblade, a replica pistol, and a shitload of pills.
Just a massive shitload of pills.
A head full of pills. At his house, he had a trophy room where he kept some personal stuff from some of the victims. His wife had recently filed for divorce, and he was a known regular at certain gay bars. While in prison, police were building a very strong case against Cottingham and had found 3 surviving victims. The attacks on these 3 had taken place in 1978, 1 year before his first known murder. He was eventually found guilty of Valerie Streets, drawing a sentence of 173 to 197 years in prison. In 2 of his following trials, he was found guilty of 4 second-degree murders. One would doubt that Richard Cottingham will be freed in the near future. Some other shit about him. 1 month before,
Some other shit about this guy. Just in case you wanted to know more shit.
1 month before his arrest, Cottingham's wife filed for divorce citing extreme cruelty. She also claimed that he had refused sex with her since 1976.
That's a long time.
While in prison, Cottingham smashed his glasses and attempted to take his own life, but he fucked up and just ended up without glasses for a while. Good riddance.
So
Yeah.
he just tried to reset and then just ended up not being able to see.
What a douche. That's Richard Cottingham. He did not gym, tan, and laundry. He did other things.
Okay. Well, damn. Okay. We're going on to New York, and I think most people will know this person, David Berkowitz, a.k.a. the son of Sam.
Never heard of him, but I heard he looks like a John Travolta.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a John Travolta creepy guy. Yeah, for sure. David Berkowitz was born with the name of Richard David Falco on June 1st, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. Within only a few days of his birth, his biological mother, Elizabeth Betty Broder, gave him away.
But this year...
To save me from tears.
More beer?
Oh, yeah. You just want to interrupt me? Fine, that's fine.
Thanks, buddy.
We interrupt this program for a second beer opening.
Yes.
This is from Epic Brewing. It's a coffee stout, and it's called Son of a Baptist.
S.O.B.
Yours is smoking.
Yeah. Let's go.
So this should cleanse the palate after that pina colada.
I hope so.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, why do you always pick shit? It's weird.
You don't like it?
No. Oh, you like that?
It's coffee stout.
That aftertaste is ass.
You are hard to please, man.
No, dude, you like that?
Not really.
It tastes like dirt. It tastes like you're eating dirt.
Yeah, that's not as good as I was hoping it would be. How is it that I fucked up on 2 beers?
Oh, man, that's worse than the first one.
I'm like, it's going to cleanse our
Played
palate.
that off like you liked it.
Well, it wasn't bad until now the aftertaste is pretty rough.
Oh, it just keeps coming, too. Oh, it's like dirt.
All right, well, you should buy the next beer.
Okay.
That was rough. Like, we've had so many stouts. Like, coffee stouts are great. Okay. Broder had grown up as part of an impoverished family and was working as a waitress. In 1936, she married Tony Falco, an Italian-American. After a short-lived marriage of less than only 4 years, Falco left her for another woman.
The old Falco punch.
Just punch and vanish.
I was going more Falcon punch off the video
Falcon
games.
punch!
You're going off something different, huh?
Yeah, well,
Some type of
mixing the two.
wreck and leave.
It's
Hit it for 4 years and quit it forever.
Forever. It's called The Family Wrecker. Wow. As an infant, Richard was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz of the Bronx. The couple were hardware store retailers of modest means and childless in their middle age. They reversed the order of the boy's first and middle names, giving him their own surname, raising the young David Richard Berkowitz as their only child. Now, his childhood was somewhat troubled. Although he had above-average intelligence, he lost interest in education at an early age, becoming infatuated with petty larceny and arson. It's a good little combo.
Why learn when I can just steal shit?
And light shit on fire.
Yeah.
2 + 2, nah, I want to strike a match. He also reportedly suffered head injuries as a child. Neighbors and relatives describe Berkowitz as difficult, spoiled, and a bully. His adoptive parents consulted at least one psychotherapist due to his misconduct, but no legal intervention was taken or serious mention in his school records. Berkowitz's adoptive mother died of breast cancer when he was only 14 years old, causing his home life to become strained in later years, particularly because he hated his adopted father's second wife. At the age of 17, he joined the United States Army, serving at Fort Knox in the United States with an infantry division in South Korea. After an honorable discharge in June of 1974, he located his birth mother, Betty. After a few visits, she disclosed the details of his birth. The news pissed Berkowitz off, and he was particularly distraught by the array of reluctant father figures. He's like, man, nobody wants me around.
Well, maybe he wasn't such an asshole as a kid.
Blame the kid. Fucking dare you. It's all the kid's fault. Being a shitty kid. No one wants to be your dad because you suck.
You were such a shitty kid.
Your dad would have stuck around if you didn't suck so bad. You're the reason you don't have a father, you little shit.
Oh my
God, dude.
Didn't mean like that. Just said his adopted father could have been like, you know.
He walks in, I can already tell you're a shithole.
For 14 years, and you're like, you know what, I'm out.
I was a shitty dad because you were a fucking asshole.
Dad, not the OG.
Yeah, right. During the mid-70s, Berkowitz began his spree of committing violent crimes. He botched his first attempt at murder using a knife, then switched to a handgun and began a lengthy crime spree throughout the New York boroughs of the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, seeking young female victims. Every single scene, save one, involved two victims. He infamously committed some of his attacks while the women sat with boyfriends in parked cars. Berkowitz took a particular enjoyment in his activities, often returning to the scenes of his crimes. Berkowitz claimed that when he was 22 years old, he committed his first attack on Christmas Eve, 1975, when he used a hunting knife to stab two women in Co-op City, or, as I like to call it, Two-Player City. The first alleged victim, a Hispanic woman, was never identified by police. The second was 15-year-old Michelle Foreman, a sophomore at Truman High School, whom he stabbed 6 times on a bridge near Dressier Loop. Her injuries were serious enough for her to be hospitalized for an entire week. Berkowitz was not suspected of these crimes, and soon afterward he relocated to an apartment in Yonkers. Yonkers is such a weird name for a city.
That's a bonkers name, man.
Yonkers. The first shooting attributed to Berkowitz occurred in the Pelham Bay neighborhood of the Bronx. Roughly 1:10 a.m. on July 29th of 76, Donna Laria, who was 18 and an emergency medical technician, and her friend Jody Valenti, 19, also a nurse, were sitting in Valenti's double-parked Oldsmobile discussing their evening at Peach Trees, which was a New Rochelle discotheque. Laria opened the car door to leave and noticed a man quickly approaching. Startled and angered by the man's sudden appearance, she said, "Now what is this?" The man produced a gun from the paper bag that he carried and crouched. Bracing one elbow on his knee, he aimed his weapon with both hands and fired. Laria was struck by one bullet, killing her instantly, while Valenti was shot in her thigh, a third bullet missing both of them. The shooter turned and walked away quickly. Valenti survived her injury and said that she did not recognize the killer, but she described him as a white man in his 30s with fair complexion, approximately 5 to 8 inches tall, and weighing about 200 pounds. He had short, dark, and curly hair in a mod style. This description was repeated by Laria's father, who claimed to have seen a similar man sitting in a yellow compact car parked nearby. Neighbors gave corroborating reports to police that an unfamiliar yellow compact car had been cruising the area for hours before the shooting. Years later, in '93, an imprisoned Berkowitz admitted in an interview that he had in fact shot Laria and Valenti. Several years later, at roughly 12:40 a.m. on January 30th of 77, Secretary Christine Freund and her fiancé, bartender John Deal, were sitting in Deal's car near the Forest Hills station in Queens, preparing to drive to a dance after watching the movie Rocky. You want to go dance after watching Rocky?
Oh, every time, man. Every time.
3 gunshots penetrated the car, and in a panic, Deal drove away for help. He sustained minor superficial injuries, but Freund was shot twice and died several hours later at the hospital. Neither victim had seen their attacker. Police made the first public acknowledgement that the Freund and Deal shooting was similar to earlier incidents, and that the crimes might be connected. All the victims had been struck with .44 caliber bullets, and the shooting seemed to target young women with long dark hair. NYPD Sergeant Richard Conlon stated that the police were leaning towards a connection in all these cases. Composite sketches were released of the black-haired Laria Laria Valenti's suspect and other suspects they thought were related to the case. And Conlon noted that police were looking for multiple suspects, not just one. The crimes were discussed by local media virtually every day due to the continued shootings. Circulation increased dramatically for the New York Post and the Daily News. At about 3 o'clock a.m. on April 17th of 77, Alexander Esau, who was a tow truck driver, and Valentina Suriani, a Lehman College student and an aspiring actress and model, were sitting in a car belonging to Esau's brother on the Hutchinson River Parkway in the Bronx, roughly a block from Suriani's home and only a few blocks away from the scene of the Laria Valenti shooting. A resident of a nearby building heard 4 shots, called the police. Suriani, who was sitting in the driver's seat, was shot once and Esau twice, both of them in the head. Suriani died at the scene and Esau died in the hospital several hours later without being able to describe the attackers. Police said that the weapon was used for the crime was the same as the one which they had suspected in the earlier shootings. In '93, Berkowitz confirmed that he was the shooter. Police discovered a handwritten letter near the bodies of Esau and Suriani, written mostly in block capitals with a few lowercase letters. It was addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli. With this letter, Berkowitz identified himself as Son of Sam for the first time. The press had previously dubbed the killer the .44 caliber killer because of his weapon of choice, but I guess he didn't think it was cool enough. The letter was initially withheld from the public, but some of its contents were revealed to the press, and the name Son of Sam quickly replaced the old name. The letter had some misspellings in it and reads as follows. This letter is so fucking weird.
Okay.
I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill, commands Father Sam. Behind our house, some rest, mostly young, raped and slaughtered, their blood drained, just bones now. Papa Sam keeps me locked in the attic too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I'm on a different wavelength than everybody else, programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention, all police, shoot me first, shoot to kill or else. Keep out of my way or you will die.
He sounds like a diva.
Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He's had too many heart attacks. Too many heart attacks. Ugh, me hoot, it hurts, sonny boy. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster, Beelzebub, the chubby behemoth. I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. It's like the prettiest of all. I don't know why. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt. My life. Blood for Papa. Mr. Borelli, sir. I don't want to kill any more, no, sir. No more. But I must. Honor thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to Yahoos, to the people of Queens. I love you, and I want to wish all of you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next, and for now I say goodbye and good night. Police, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back. I'll be back. To be interpreted as bang, 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 bank, bang, ugh. Yours in murder, Mr. Monster.
Click, click, ugh.
Isn't that quite the letter?
Yeah, that's intense, man.
Yeah. On May 30th of 1977, Daily News columnist Jimmy Breslin received a handwritten letter from someone who claimed to be the .44 caliber killer. The letter was postmarked early that same day in Englewood, New Jersey. On the back of this envelope, neatly hand-printed in 4 precisely centered lines, were the words blood and family, darkness and death, absolute depravity. 44. The letter inside read, Hello from the gutters of New York City, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine, and blood. Hello from the sewers of New York City, which swallow up these delicacies when they are washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of New York City, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks, and feed in the dried blood of the dead that has settled into these cracks. JB, I'm just dropping you a line to let you know that I appreciate your interest in those recent and horrendous 44 killings. I also want to tell you that I read your column daily, and I find it quite informative. Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 29th? You can forget about me if you like, because I don't care for publicity. However, you must not forget Donna Laria, and you cannot let the people forget her either. She was a very, very sweet girl, but Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood. Mr. Breslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam. I love my work. Now the void has been filled. Perhaps we shall meet face to face someday, or perhaps I will be blown away by cops with smoking 38s. Whatever, if I shall be fortunate enough to meet you, I will tell you all about Sam if you like, and I will introduce you to him. His name is Sam the Terrible. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say you'll see my handiwork at the next job? Remember, Miss Laria, thank you. In their blood and from the gutter of Sam's creation, 44 here are some names to help you along. Forward them to the inspector for use by NCIC, the Duke of Death, the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, rapist and suffocator of young girls. P.S. JB, please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Keep 'em digging, drive on, think positive, get off your butts, knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working the case a new pair of shoes if I can get up the money. Son of Sam.
Wow, what a kind promise. I don't have the money.
Yeah, I don't have it.
But I got you.
I gotta get you some new shoes when I do. The Daily News published the letter a week later, after agreeing with police, of course, to withhold portions of the text, and Breslin urged the killer to surrender. The dramatic article made that day's paper the highest-selling edition of the Daily News to date. More than 1.1 million copies were sold. Police received thousands of tips based on references in the publicized portions of the letter, all of which proved useless. Several other shootings took place after these letters were sent, causing more widespread panic in the citizens of New York. Local resident Cecilia Davis was walking her dog at the scene of one of the shootings when she saw patrol officer Michael Cateno ticketing a car that had been parked near a fire hydrant. Soon after the officer left, a young man walked past her from the area of the car and seemed to study her with some interest. Davis became scared as he was holding some kind of dark object in his hand. She ran to her home, only to hear shots fired behind her in the street. Davis remained silent about this experience for 4 days until she got the courage to call the police, who closely checked every car that had been ticketed in that area that night. Berkowitz's yellow 1970 Ford Galaxy was among the cars that they investigated. On August 6th of 77, NYPD Detective James Justice called the Yonkers Police Department asking to schedule an interview with Berkowitz. The Yonkers police dispatcher who first took Justice's call was Wheat Carr, the daughter of Sam Carr and sister of Berkowitz's alleged cult confederates John and Michael Carr. As soon as Justice mentioned the name David Berkowitz to Wheat, she said, "Well, let me tell you about him. I know him. He lives right behind me." She also told Justice that Berkowitz had shot and wounded their black Labrador retriever named Harvey, and that Harvey was her father Sam's dog. When Justice heard Sam, he had a very good feeling that Berkowitz was the real culprit that they'd been looking for. On August 10th of 77, police investigated Berkowitz's car, which was parked outside of his apartment building at 35 Pine Street in Yonkers. They saw a gun in the back seat, searched the car, and found a duffel bag filled with ammunition, maps of the crime scenes, and a threatening letter addressed to Inspector Timothy Dowd of the Son of Sam Task Force. Police decided to wait for Berkowitz to leave the apartment rather than risk any violent confrontation in the building. They also waited to obtain a search warrant for the apartment, worried that their search might not hold up in court. The initial search of the vehicle was based on the handgun that was visible from the back seat, although possession of such a gun was legal in New York and required no special permit. The warrant had still not arrived when Berkowitz exited the apartment building at about 10 o'clock p.m., entering his car. Detective John Filatico approached the driver's side of the car and pointed his gun at Berkowitz's temple, while Detective Sergeant William Gardelia pointed his gun from the passenger side. A paper bag containing a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver of the same type was found next to Berkowitz in the car. Berkowitz then stated flatly, "Well, you got me," with a big, inexplicable smile on his face. An alternate version claims that Berkowitz's first words were reported to be, "Well, you got me. How come it took you such a long time?" Police searched Berkowitz's apartment, finding it in disarray with satanic graffiti all over the walls. They also found diaries that he had kept since he was 21 years old. Berkowitz was interrogated for about 30 minutes in the early morning of August 11th of 77. He quickly confessed to the shootings and expressed an interest in pleading guilty. During questioning, he claimed that his neighbor's dog was one of the reasons that he killed, stating that the dog demanded the blood of pretty young girls. The dog told him to do it.
Oh, goddamn dog.
He said that Sam, mentioned in the first letter, was his former neighbor Sam Carr, and that Harvey, Carr's black Labrador, was possessed by an ancient demon which issued irresistible commands that Berkowitz kill people. On June 12th, 78, Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder, to be served consecutively. He was ordered to serve time in Attica Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in upstate New York. Despite prosecutors' objections, the terms of Berkowitz's guilty plea made him eligible for parole in 25 years.
Eligible for parole?
In 25 years.
What?
Yeah.
That seems ridiculous. Oh, like from today?
No, from
He got arrested.
78. So it's past.
So is he dead?
No, he's still in prison.
Okay, fair enough.
Still in prison. I don't think he's leaving.
Yeah, I don't think he should.
He should not.
I don't think he can be rehabilitated. You know, just another demon dog, and he might go.
The dog told me that he was lusting for women and to shed her blood.
Yeah, totally the dog, man. He was not man's best friend. All right.
I wonder what the cat would have told him to do.
I don't know. Scratch people.
Go lick that frozen bird in the yard. Like a popsicle.
She was doing it. Let's jump to North Carolina and talk about Henry Wallace.
Ugh, that beer is so fucking awful.
So bad, dude.
That was a bad day for beer.
You buy this for an SOB.
That's why I bought it for you.
Like, Jesus, dude.
Well,
I've had some bad beers before, but this one takes the cake.
Coffee stout with cacao nibs.
It's like literally they sprinkle
an
ounce of dirt.
It is so bad. I'm sad because usually stouts are good.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, this will be better. And you're like, well, fuck you, dude. You got two bad beers.
I know, I got mad.
When you were like, ugh.
Just kept getting worse.
Yeah, it's bad. I just took a big swig and I hate my life.
All right, let's jump to North Carolina and talk about Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was born November 4th, 1965, and is an American serial killer who killed 10 women in Charlotte, North Carolina, and is awaiting execution in Central Prison in Raleigh. So his early life. Henry Louis Wallace was born in Barnwell, South Carolina, son of Lottie Mae Wallace, and a married school teacher who walked out on his lover when he found out that she was pregnant. You're pregnant?
Wow.
Wallace grew up with his mother working long hours as a textile worker. His mother was a harsh disciplinarian, constantly criticizing her son for even the smallest mistakes. He attended Barnwell High School, where he was elected to student council and was a cheerleader. Wallace graduated in 1983. He became a DJ for a local radio station in Barnwell. He went to several colleges before joining the U.S. Navy in 1985. Wallace married his high school sweetheart, the former Moretta Brabham.
What? Excuse me? What kind of fucking name is Brabham? Say it again.
The former
Moretta Brabham.
The former Moretta Brabham in 1987. Is that like a position or a woman?
Brabham. I think it's Brabham.
Brabham.
It's Brabham.
In 1988, Wallace was honorably discharged from the U.S. Navy. Early criminal career. During his time in the Navy, he began using several drugs, including crack cocaine.
Hey!
Yeah. In Washington, he was served warrants for several burglaries in and around the Seattle metro area. In January 1988, Wallace was arrested for breaking into a hardware store. That June, he pleaded guilty to second-degree burglary, and a judge sentenced him to 2 years of supervised probation.
Of all the places to break into, a hardware store?
Yeah, I don't know, man. He wanted to get hammered.
Hey! That was half decent.
According to probation officer Patrick Seberg, Wallace did not show up for his mandatory meetings. Now let's jump into the murders. In early 1990, he murdered Tashonda
Barham.
Bethia, then dumped her in the lake in his hometown. It is not until weeks later her body was discovered. He was questioned by the police regarding her disappearance and death, but was never formally charged in her murder. He was also questioned in a connection with the attempt rape of a 16-year-old Barnwell girl, but was never charged for that either. By that time, his marriage had fallen apart, and he was fired from his job as a chemical operator in Sandoz Chemical Company. In February 1991, he broke into his old high school and the radio station where he once worked. He stole video and recording equipment and was caught trying to pawn them. In November 1991, he relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina. He found jobs at several fast food restaurants in East Charlotte. In May 1992, he picked up Sharon Nance, a convicted drug dealer and prostitute. When she demanded payment for her services, Wallace beat her to death, then dropped her body by the railroad tracks.
Jeez.
She was found a few days later. He then strangled Caroline Love at her apartment, then dumped her body in a wooded area. After he killed her, he and her sisters filed missing persons reports at the police station. It would almost be 2 years before her body was discovered in a wooded area in Charlotte. He murdered Shauna Hawk after visiting her home on February 19, 1993, and later went to her funeral. In March 1993, Hawk's mother, Dee Scumpter...
Descumped?
Dee Scumps.
What the fuck is descumpting?
And her grandmother, Judy Williams, founded Mothers of Murdered Offspring.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an acronym.
It's an MMO.
For mom. A Charlotte-based support group for parents of murdered children. On June 22nd, he killed coworker Audrey Spain. Her body was found 2 days later. On August 10, 1993, Wallace killed Valencia M. Jumper, then set her on fire to cover up his crimes. A few days later after her murder, he and his sister went to Valencia's funeral. A month later, in September 1993, he went to an apartment of Michelle Stinson, a struggling college student and a single mother of 2 sons. He strangled and stabbed her in front of her oldest son. That October, his only child was born. On February 20th, 1994, Wallace killed Vanessa Little Mack in her apartment. Mack had 2 daughters, aged 7 and 4 months, at the time of her death. On March 8th, 1994, Wallace robbed and strangled Betty Jean Boycom. Afterwards, he took valuables from the house. Then he left the apartment with her car. He pawned everything except the car, which he left at a shopping center. Wallace went back to the same apartment complex on the night of March 8, 1994, knowing that Vernon Woods would be back at work so he could murder his girlfriend, Brandy June Henderson. Wallace strangled Henderson and her son, Teresi, that night.
Teresi?
Therese? All right. Therese that night. Like, just look at the
Teresi?
spelling, dude. Look at the spelling. I've never seen that in my life. Afterwards, he took some valuables from the apartment and left. The police beefed up patrols in East Charlotte after 2 bodies of young black women were found at the Lake apartment complex. Even so, Wallace sneaked through to rob, strangle, and stab Deborah Ann Slaughter. Her body was found on March 12, 1994. Wallace was arrested on March 13, 1994. For 12 hours, he confessed to the murders of 10 women in Charlotte.
It's a confession an hour almost.
He described in detail the women's appearances, how he raped, robbed, and killed the women, and his crack habit.
Oh, and by the way, I take crack.
So that's it. That's what he did.
Damn.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to round it out with North Dakota, talking about a man named Harvey Carignan. Carignan was born to an unmarried 20-year-old mother in North Dakota on May 18th, 1927. When he was only 10, Carignan returned to live with his mother after spending time with his aunt and uncle in North Dakota and Minnesota. He had a bedwetting issue as a child and was diagnosed as having childhood chorea and enuresis. Carignan struggled tremendously with academics, and at the age of 18, he graduated from the Reform School and enlisted in the United States Army. On July 31st, 1949, Carignan killed 58-year-old Laura Showalter during an attempted rape in Alaska. On September 16th, 1949, he attempted to rape another woman, Christine Norton, and was arrested the next day. Kerrigan was convicted of first-degree murder and assault with intent to commit rape. The jury did not recommend mercy, and he received a mandatory death sentence. However, check this bullshit out. Kerrigan won a new trial on his murder conviction in 1951 on the grounds that his confession had been improperly obtained. Improperly obtained. The officer who interrogated Kerrigan told him that he would not be executed if he confessed to the murder.
Oh, I thought like they misspelled his name. It's like,
No.
put 2 R's, and it's not you.
Kerrigan's confession was suppressed, and the murder charge was later dismissed. He continued to serve a 15-year sentence for assaulting Christine Norton. However, in 1952, he was transferred to Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary before being paroled in 1960. Only a few months after his parole, Harvey and his brother Clinton, who was also a parolee from Alcatraz, were arrested for burglary in Minnesota. They were convicted of attempted third-degree burglary, and Harvey returned to prison for 4 years. He was paroled on March 2nd of 1964. In November 1964, Kerrigan was arrested for second-degree burglary in Washington. He was found guilty, received a 15-year sentence, and was paroled once more in 1968. So he just robs, gets paroled, robs, gets paroled. Kerrigan later served another year for violating his parole. On October 15th, 1972, 19-year-old Leslie Lara Brock was found dead in Washington. She had been killed by several blows to the head. At least one person claimed to have seen Brock get into Kerrigan's truck. On May 1st, 1973, 15-year-old Kathy Sue Miller saw a help wanted ad by Kerrigan for his gas station. When she showed up, Kerrigan raped her, beat her to death with a hammer. Miller's body was found months later by 2 boys who were hiking on the Indian reservation north of Everett, Washington. She was bundled in a sheet of plastic with hammer holes in her skull. Although he was considered the prime suspect, Kerrigan never faced charges for the murders of Brock or Miller due to a lack of evidence. On September 9th, 1973, Kerrigan picked up 13-year-old hitchhiker Jerry Billings in Minnesota. He sexually assaulted her and beat her with a hammer before releasing her, warning her not to say anything. In May of 1974, Kerrigan began living with a 29-year-old woman named Eileen Hunley, and they settled in Minnesota. On August 9th, 1974, Hunley left Kerrigan and she disappeared the next day. Suspicious. Her body was found about 5 weeks later. Hunley's skull had been imploded by blows to the head, and she'd been raped with a tree branch. On September 14th of 1974, Kerrigan picked up Gwen Burton from a Sears parking lot. He ripped off her clothing, choked her until she was nearly unconscious, and sexually assaulted her with a hammer. Afterwards, Kerrigan dumped Burton in a field. She survived, however, and was able to find help. On September 18th of 1974, Kerrigan picked up teenage girls Sally Versois and Diane Flynn, forcing the two to perform oral sex and beat them if they did not follow his commands. Versois and Flynn escaped when Kerrigan stopped for gas. On September 20th of 1974, 18-year-old Catherine Schultz disappeared. Her body was found the next day in a cornfield. She had been beaten to death with a hammer, and her skull had imploded. Kerrigan was arrested on September 24th, 1974. He was charged with attempted murder and aggravated sodomy. Kerrigan pleaded insanity, claiming God ordered him to kill whores and harlots. His defense failed, and in 1975... God told me to kill all whores and harlots.
Divine intervention.
Seriously. His defense failed, and in 1975 he was found guilty of both charges. After his conviction, Kerrigan had a mental evaluation and was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Months later, he was found guilty of indecent liberties, sodomy upon a child, and 2 additional counts of aggravated sodomy. Kerrigan was sentenced to a total of 60 years in prison. He was later indicted on murder charges for killing Schultz and Hunley. Kerrigan pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for killing Schultz and received a 40-year sentence. He was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Hunley and received a life sentence. Kerrigan died at Minnesota Correctional Facility on March 6, 2023 at the age of 95.
Damn.
95. Okay, well, that wraps us up for The Serial Killer Part 7. We look forward to doing Part 8 sometime at the end of the month or next month. As we wrap up, a huge shout-out to all of our paid supporters of the show, Claytor, Lord of Soup, Curtis, and Lara, Jackson, Mothman, Laura, Devin, Conklin family, and Lou. Thank you all for your continued support. We are currently sitting at 455 subscribers on YouTube, so we're only 45 away before we visit the Clown Motel in Nevada.
So if you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps us get us out there. And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.